Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Yates Anya Mind, Steph Anya for short. I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist, and this channel is for fellow therapists, those thinking of becoming therapists, and those who are simply looking to create their best lives. Today we'll be dealing with a really tough subject, grief. And we'll be talking about what to expect during the stages of grief, but more importantly, some exercises that might help you through your grieving process. If you're curious about a few tips that may help you cope with your grief, please stay tuned. What's on your mind? I want to give a shout out to one of my Instagram followers and subscribers who actually requested this topic. On my Instagram, most weeks I will ask if there's anything you all are struggling with that would be useful to talk about. Sometimes I'll ask about challenges in certain areas of your life. And so I just wanted to thank my follower and all of you who have been constantly letting me know the videos that would be most useful for you. I'm trying to get to them as fast as I can, knowing that I can only upload once a week. Okay, so typically, you know, I start with the definition, but I think we all have a good understanding what grief means. So being a therapist, grief is something that I'm talking about all of the time. It's multifaceted. For some people, it'll be grief around a miscarriage. For others, it could be grief around a person being diagnosed with an illness. Sometimes we're also grieving the end of a relationship, and all of those things come with a sense of mourning and trying to understand what's next. How do I move forward with this new reality? So I don't want people to feel like we're only talking about grief through the lens of losing a person through death, but we will be talking predominantly today about the loss of a loved one, but most of these tips will be applicable no matter what type of grief you're dealing with. I'll start with those 5 stages of grief that many of us have heard of, but some haven't. And I think the stages sometimes can be confusing for people if they feel like they're not progressing fast enough. But just so that maybe you can see where you are, which stage might be the most applicable to you, I'll go ahead and quickly define those 5 stages of grief, and then I'll move into my tips. So the 5 stages of grief, the acronym is DABDA. The first one is denial, about the passing or loss of the person or situation that you're grieving. The second one, A, is for anger, and that is self-explanatory. At that point, you are upset about whatever loss you're experiencing. The B stands for bargaining. So in some cases, we are asking God or asking the doctor, whatever the situation may be, we're bargaining to see, take us instead or take that instead. We're asking, how can we get this person or this situation back that we loved and held on to so dearly? The second D stands for depression. And this stage I find can be the most long-standing stage of grief. This is where I see people who are really struggling with, am I chronically depressed or is this situational depression? Because it can last for a long time. Sometimes it can last for years. So if you are in a stage where you feel like you have been just stuck in your grief for a really long time, that is okay. You're not weird. It's not wrong of you to feel that way, and you don't have to keep it a secret. And the last A stands for acceptance. Acceptance of this change in your life, this new normal, this experience of having to move on or move forward without that person or situation. I just wanted to briefly give you guys the 5 stages of grief because it's so popularly known, and it can be helpful to kind of know where you are and maybe how you can anticipate to go. But keep in mind, it is cyclical. You can go from one stage back to another stage. Grief is really unpredictable, and I don't want you to feel any pressure to continue just moving through those stages. I have tried so many things with my clients, and these are some of the things that have just really stuck that my clients have shared with me, have been really useful for them, and things that I myself have used in my times of grief. Just for a moment of self-disclosure, probably the biggest deaths that I've experienced was the death of my mother about 5 years ago, and the death of my grandmother, which happened at the end of 2019, which was last year. And so I used similar techniques in my own personal experiences, and these things really did help me. So I'm just sharing that knowledge of my experience, but again, I want to iterate that grief is such a unique process and there's no right way to do it. I'm just hoping that these exercises might be able to help you process your feelings. The first thing that I see that my clients friends, family, I struggled with is honestly being open with people that you're struggling. Sometimes we feel this pressure to just be strong and keep pushing and life goes forward when we lose that person or situation. But it is totally okay for you to be struggling with accepting a reality without that person or that situation. And so being open and honest with your close support system. Hey, just so you know, I am still struggling. I'm frustrated. I can't sleep at night. I'm crying at night. Just bringing them in the loop and letting them know what you do or don't need. Sometimes my clients are so hyper aware of pity and they don't want to be pitied, and I understand that, but what happened to you is sad, and people will be sad about it for you because they love you and they care about you. And it doesn't make you a weak or bad or less interesting person because you are sad and people do feel bad for you. There are times where you felt bad for people. We all will experience times where we are the person that people feel sorry for, and that is okay. So if you are afraid of being pitied, I'd encourage you to move past that fear or discomfort so that the people that can actually help you know that there is something that they need to be helping with. And if you can't talk to your loved ones, my next tip is to, of course, find a therapist or a grief counselor. There are certified grief counselors who literally work day in and day out with people who are grieving. Another great option would be to find a grief support group. The wonderful thing about support groups is that they can get very, very specific. So maybe you lost a person due to cancer. They'll have a group that is specifically for people who have lost someone due to cancer. Or maybe you've been diagnosed with cancer and you need some support kind of grieving that loss of health or this new experience in your life. So finding a support group can be a really great way for you not to feel so alienated. Even if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with your inner circle, you can still find a support system to kind of lean on and even lend your shoulder to. Here's one of my favorite exercises to do with my clients, and something that really helped me is sharing the story of you and that person you lost. It can be so surprising, the things that we don't voice out loud, that trip we took to the store with that person, or the memorable day where we stopped and got ice cream. Share that story because sometimes it feels like these really insignificant moments are just so insignificant that they're not worth talking about. But once you lose a person, things become so much more significant. That last hug, that last phone call. So share your story from beginning to end. Just telling that story, again, that could be to a close friend, that could be to a therapist, that could be in your journal. Just writing that narrative so that you can remember it, because one of the scariest things about losing someone is feeling like you're going to forget them and you won't remember those special moments that you had with them. I had a client that talked about someone looking in the rearview mirror and they would always wink at each other. They just always did that. But now they look in the rearview mirror and they're not there anymore. If you're an artist drawing those special moments that you don't want to forget, think about a way to canonize them and keep them in your memory forever. Do something in their honor. And usually with my clients, we're talking about either something that loved one always loved to do, or something that they always wanted you to do. So maybe they always told you should sing more. Maybe you sing a song for them. Maybe you upload that song in their honor. Maybe they always wanted to travel to a certain place and maybe you go there on their behalf. Those little things of doing something in their honor can sometimes give us the closure that we never really got with that person, especially in cases where it was an unexpected or surprising loss. Here's another great closure bringing one, is to learn more about them through the perspective of other people that were in a different phase of their life. So it was really rewarding for me to hear stories from my mom's sorority sisters. I never knew those stories and I never knew her through their eyes. So just finding out more about that person through other people can be so healing, to just get to feel like you're getting to know them all over again, and that there is no shortage of memories or stories regarding that person that you've lost. Here's one that works well too if you're grieving a breakup or someone that you're just having to sever ties with, but also is really effective if you have lost someone. We have those reminders of them on a day-to-day basis, the small things we would have called them about or texted them. We can't tell them those things anymore. But sometimes it can be healing to still get those things out, those thoughts out of your mind. Write it down. So they'll have a journal, and let's say that, you know, a certain celebrity comes on that you know you would have talked to them about it. I just saw such and such, you would have loved their outfit. Whatever your dynamic was with that person, you have an outlet for writing down the things that you would have texted them or called them about, just so it feels like you still are remembering them and honoring that dynamic. Along those lines, it can be helpful to write full-length letters to them. Address it in their name, catching them up on what's been going on with you, maybe asking them for guidance or help if you're spiritual, and just still keeping that communication alive. If you still have so much you need to say to them, write them a letter. And if you knew them really well, some of my clients have actually written a letter back from that person's perspective. And that can be a little eerie, but sometimes you know that person so well that you know exactly what they would have said. And sometimes it would have been a word of encouragement or a word of comfort, and maybe that's what you need right now. And so writing it from their perspective back to you could be really healing as well. And I don't take these tasks lightly. I know that this can be very emotionally charged and draining, and so do it at your own pace. Listen to your body. If you're doing any of these things and it's way too overwhelming, stop. You know yourself better. But if you are doing these things and it is emotionally charged, but you're feeling like you're finally getting some of these things out, keep with it, because emotions aren't bad. That's the whole point to the grieving process, is to process those emotions, cope with the new reality, and respect the fact that you're sad, angry, in denial. Doesn't matter where you're at. It's okay to feel that way, and you want to respect those feelings. So those are just a few tips or exercises that my clients and I have used. It has kind of made the process of grieving and mourning feel like it has more of a purpose. It made us feel like we were able to do something about it. So these are things that have worked for us, my clients and me, but maybe there are other things that have worked for you. If you've got some wonderful tips or things that worked for you that could be useful for anyone watching this video, please leave that in the comments below. Let's build a support community around grief, especially right now where we all don't have access to those rituals that we're accustomed to, like a funeral or gathering together at a person's house to just support one another. We don't have those resources right now while we're quarantined, so it can be really difficult to figure out, how can I find any closure in losing the significant person if I don't have access to those rituals that have brought me peace in the past? We just don't have the same access. It's totally okay to be struggling. It's totally expected. There is absolutely no timeline for processing grief. Take your time and do the things that make you feel better. I hope this helps. Again, my name is Stephanie Yates Anyabwile, Steph Anya for short. I hope that you subscribe to this channel and like this video if you found it helpful. I truly appreciate you for watching until the end of the video. That really helps me. Thank you.